Smash Bros is a game with so many characters in its roster that the only game to rival it at this point is that of the hit game Fortnite Battle Royale. I mean, damn, the fact that you can put Sora, Sonic, Pyra, and a Piranha Plant all into one match, and have them duke it out for victory is sick. Who wouldn't love to watch that? But with the release of the latest entry, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, there's been a lingering question in the Smash community. Where the hell do we go from here? See, Ultimate's roster is quite literally and undeniably Ultimate. Everyone is here, and they even went ahead and added new additions alongside that too. So today I'm nuking half the roster and making my own Frankenstein version of it. Here are the rules. I'm giving myself a goal. There are 82 characters in Smash Bros. Ultimate, or 86, or 89, because the official Smash Bros. Site seems to be very confused. Pyra and Mythra are counted as two separate characters, 79 and 80 respectively, and Pokemon Trainer counts as three numbers, 33, 34, and 35 respectively. So bringing those down to one slot each would make the roster 79 characters, but at the same time, Echo Fighters aren't counted here, even though they should be, so that'd bring it up to 86. My point of all of this is to say fuck the Smash Ultimate website. It is completely unreliable, but anyways, I'm making it so I need to remove at least half of the roster, bringing it down to 43 characters. I'm also giving myself a limit on how many characters I can add. This is intended as a refresh of the Smash roster. If I get rid of 50 characters and then add 60 more, this just makes the entire video not only redundant, but also very unrealistic. So I'm giving myself 22 slots, 11 for base game and 11 for DLC. The video will be split up into three major sections. Section 1 will be who I'm going to change, Section 2 is who I'm keeping and removing, and Section 3 is who would add. Also, I just want to add, I'm not a competitive Smash player, so if you don't agree with who I remove or who I change because it's not competitively viable, or whatever, please just know, I don't care. And you're probably in the wrong place. At the end of the day, I'm just an incredibly casual player, doing this for fun, and, you know, content. Finally, so we can have a base for this hypothetical roster, ideally I'd personally call Smash 6 Super Smash Bros. Second Wind, as while it's obviously not the second game, it's what is essentially a new start for Smash. This game would also probably release late 2026 if I had to guess, as it's 8 years after Smash Ultimate's original release, and 5 years after the last character was added. It's also a perfect game for the holidays, and it matched Smash Ultimate's release time being just a few months before Switch's second anniversary, assuming they released the Switch 2 in early 2025. When I say changes, it's basically anything that causes an existing character to not be the same as they once were. This could be something like turning an Echo Fighter into a skin, to straight up reworking an entire character's moveset. I'll be going in order of where each character appears on the roster to make it easier. For example, the first character I'm changing is Link. Now, for the record, I'm not a massive Zelda fan, so there's not too much I can say on him, but considering they changed Link's design in Ultimate to represent his Breath of the Wild design, it's safe to assume he'll get the same treatment in the next game for Tears of the Kingdom. I'd also assume they'll change his moveset to be more in line with his Tears counterpart. It'd be cool to see moves that represent stuff such as Ultra Hand. I'd also probably update both Ganon and Zelda's designs too. The next character I want to change is Dark Samus. Personally, I'd just make Dark Samus an alt costume for Samus. I don't really see a good reason to have her as a separate slot, so making her an alt costume helps to bring down the roster, while also keeping her in the game, hence why I'm counting this as a change and not a removal. She's still in the game, just not an Echo Fighter. Dr. Mario would also suffer the same fate as Dark Samus. There's literally just no reason for Dr. Mario to still be a character. With Dark Samus, you can at least make the argument that they're separate people, so it makes sense why she isn't a character. Mario and Dr. Mario are literally the same person. Dr. Mario would just become a costume for Mario, replacing one of his recolors. Dark Pit and Lucina would be the final characters undergoing the Echo Fighter into alt costume treatment. Obviously, to be clear, Dark Pit would just be a skin for Pit, and Lucina would be a skin for Marth. After that, we have Pokemon Trainer. Now, you could technically count this as a removal, but assuming they use the same name and mechanics, it's basically a rework. I'd completely change Pokemon Trainer to be in line with the current generation of Pokemon that is ongoing when Smash 6 releases. Keep in mind this is a refresh of Smash, so it makes the most sense to drop Gen 1 and go with a new generation. I assume by the time Smash 6 comes out, Gen 9 would still be ongoing with Gen 10 either revealed or close to release. So this version of Pokemon Trainer would use the Paldean starters. Assuming they keep the trend of each starter representing a specific stage of evolution, personally I'd have Fiway Coco represent the first stage evolutions, Quaxwell represent the second stage evolutions, and finally Meowscarada represent the third stage. And from one major rework to another, we go from Pokemon Trainer to Sonic the Hedgehog. This one is really damn simple thanks to Frontiers. Considering Sonic's current moveset is basically just a spin dash and homing attack, I'd keep one spin dash move and the homing attack and replace everything else with Frontiers' moves. For example, the cross slash, parry, etc. His final smash would be mostly the same, but I'd probably make it reference one of the Titans from Frontiers as well. I don't know which one specifically, but I assume if they were to do this, it'd probably be the end. It doesn't really matter which version. The penultimate character to receive a somewhat major change would be Villager. I'd make them more in line with Animal Crossing New Horizons, but I don't think I'd completely change their moveset, more so just making a mix of old and new. And finally, the Miis. I wouldn't change them too much, but if anything, Mii Brawler, Sword Fighter, and Gunner would become one character instead of being separate classes. I don't think anyone would really care if they're completely removed, but I like the idea of having your Miis be able to fight these iconic, fictional characters and Min. But I also believe it's bullshit that they take up 3 slots on the roster, so instead just compress them into one singular character that you can fully customize. So now that we're done with changes, let's speak about who's staying and who's out of here. Obviously by now it should be clear that Mario, Link, Samus, Peach, Daisy, Marth, Pit, Pokemon Trainer, Sonic, Villager, Zelda, Ganon, and the Miis are staying, along with Lucina, Dark Samus, Dark Pit, and Dr. Mario being turned into alt costumes. Let's start off with the removals though, and to begin we're getting rid of Yoshi and Ness. Earthbound is iconic and I know people love it a lot, but at this point I don't think it has the relevancy needed to stay, especially when it hasn't gotten a new game in decades. I'd also remove Captain Falcon, Wario, Rosalina and Luma, Jigglypuff, Ice Climbers, Sheik, Pichu, Falco, Young Link, Mewtwo, Roy, Diddy Kong, Lucas, Lucario, Rob, Toon Link, Wolf, Wii Fit Trainer, Rosalina, Little Mac, Palutena, Robin, Bowser Jr., Duck Hunt, Ken, Corrin, Simon, Richter, Incineroar, Piranha Plant, Joker, Banjo and Kazooie, Terry, Byleth, Min, and Kazuya. I know a lot of these characters, particularly Lucario, Ness, Joker, Banjo, Rosalina, Wario, etc., are beloved, but when cutting down the roster this heavily, I was gonna have to make some tough calls, and each of these are characters that I felt either represented series that were already heavily present in Smash, series that no longer had much relevance, such as Earthbound or ARMS, or the characters themselves I just felt wouldn't make it to the next game, either being removed entirely or being replaced by someone else. Which means the rest of the remaining characters are Donkey Kong. Without him, we literally wouldn't have Mario or probably even Nintendo. He deserves a spot here. As well as Kirby, Fox, Pikachu, because, you know, it's literally the mascot of Pokemon and we need at least one Generation 1 rep here. Luigi, Bowser, Chrom, Mr. Game & Watch, Meta Knight, Zero Suit Samus, Snake, Ike, King Dedede, Olimar, Mega Man, Greninja, Pac-Man, Shulk, Ryu, Cloud, Bayonetta, Inkling, Ridley, King K. Rool, Isabelle, Hero, Steve, Sephiroth, Pyramithra, and finally Sora. I tried to stick with characters that were iconic, still had relevancy, or serve importance to either Nintendo or gaming as a whole. I also felt it was fair that Nintendo would prioritize their main franchises if a refresh were to happen, hence why there's so many Nintendo reps. I could go further with explanations, but I'm not trying to make this video hours long. Which means with 45 characters now gone from the roster, 4 of which being turned into alt costumes, we can finally start adding characters. The way this is going to work is I have given myself a 22 character limit, as that's the amount of new characters added to Ultimate. 11 for base game, 5 for Fighter Pass 1, and 6 for Fighter Pass 2. However, I do not have to fill out all of these slots, as they could pull a Smash 4 and add returning characters as DLC. That limit is just there to keep myself in check. I've also decided to try my best to keep my wishlist realistic, so no wild choices like Goku or Spider-Man, and no, Insomniac Spider-Man doesn't count, as much as that hurts to say. With that said, starting out with the base game roster, my first pick here is Jonesy. I know I'm gonna catch flack for this, but just hear me out here. All jokes aside about how funny it'd be, Jonesy, or at least a Fortnite character, deserves a spot in Smash. Without Fortnite, Sony would never have changed their stance on cross-platform play, which was a major thing for PlayStation. Not to mention how big Fortnite is in general, it's changed a lot of people's lives, including my own. If Steve can get a spot in Smash, Jonesy, or again, just any Fortnite character, deserves a spot in the game literally made to celebrate gaming. Following that, we have Noah and Mio from Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I think they'd personally work similar to Pyra and Mithra, being one character that you can swap between in-game. Either that, or just include Noah and take advantage of Xenoblade 3's class swapping system to change his class between offense, defense, and support. Then we have Ceruledge. This would be the Incineroar of this game, being there as a one-game only thing to promote Scarlet and Violet. I've specifically chosen not to include anything that would represent Gen 10, as this hypothetical second wind would likely release fairly close to Generation 10, which I believe would also be Holiday 2026.
Objection!
After that, we have Phoenix Wright. I feel this is a pretty safe prediction. Nintendo and Capcom already have a really good relationship, especially when it comes to Smash, with Mega Man and Street Fighter both being series that are already represented. Plus, Ace Attorney was once a Nintendo exclusive franchise, so to me it makes a lot of sense to include it here. Moving on to more Nintendo reps, I'd also add Bandana D, as that's just a character that has been highly requested for a while, and he's also the player 2 of Kirby, so it makes sense to include him. Tom Nook is another one I think would also be cool. Animal Crossing could definitely do with just one more rep in the game, and Tom Nook would probably be an easy one. Then I've got a decently interesting pick, and I'm not really sure if this one would actually happen. Ratchet and Clank. Ratchet is one of PlayStation's biggest franchises, and looking at the current roster, we really don't have much PlayStation representation. Really, the only ones you could technically count are Joker, Cloud, and Sephiroth, but Joker, or more so Persona in general, isn't a PlayStation exclusive franchise anymore, and hasn't been for years. And while Final Fantasy does have a big presence on PlayStation, it isn't actually owned by Sony, and Square Enix recently announced they're moving away from being PlayStation exclusive. So Ratchet and Clank would be a great way to start adding more PlayStation IPs into Smash, alongside them just generally fitting into Smash pretty much perfectly. Then we have Chrono, the main character of Chrono Trigger. This, along with Hero returning, would genuinely just be a great way to represent Akira Toriyama's legacy as an artist, especially since Dragon Ball is off the table. Moving on, I also want to include Knuckles. It's somewhat shocking we don't have more Sonic representation in the game, and I feel like Knuckles would be a perfect addition for Smash. Similarly to the Sonic rework, I'd also take from Frontiers for his moveset. Next up is Rayman. Everyone loves Rayman, and I think it'd be a cool follow-up to him being in the iceberg on Battle Stage. This slot went through a lot of changes. Originally it was going to be Bomberman, but while Bomberman is well liked, I don't think he's as wanted as Rayman is. Then I was going to do Chai from Hi-Fi Rush. The game is deservedly pretty popular, and assuming this game comes out in late 2026, I think he'd be just in time for the base game roster. But since Tango Gameworks has been shot dead in the streets of Microsoft headquarters, I don't think we're ever seeing Chai in Smash, especially when Microsoft is infamous for treating their IPs horribly. And finally, at least for the base game roster, I'd love to see Shiver or Fry from Splatoon 3. I'm not a massive Splatoon person, but I definitely think it'd be cool to see the game get more representation in Smash, especially since it's pretty much a mainstay franchise now. Now let's start with the first volume of the Fighter Pass. For this, I have 3 original characters and 2 returning characters. When it comes to the 2 returning characters, I honestly don't have any specific picks. I'd rather leave that up for the comments to decide. In terms of placement though, personally I'd make them the 2nd and 4th waves of Fighter Pass 1 respectively. Wave 1 of the Fighter Pass, however, is Shadow the Hedgehog. Continuing on with further Sonic representation, aside from Knuckles, I think Shadow makes the most sense to be present in Smash, especially when you consider hype for him is only growing higher and higher with Sonic Prime, Shadow Generations, and Sonic Movie 3. After Shadow, I've got another interesting pick, that being Klonoa. Klonoa is a series I think deserves to have at least one playable character in the game. It'd be a very cool niche pick that I think a lot of people would very much appreciate. It's another one that you don't really need to see, but it'd definitely be a great choice. To end off Fighter Pass 1, I'd have Master Chief. Despite Halo's current state, Master Chief is still an incredibly iconic character and is highly requested. He 100% deserves a spot in Smash, in my personal opinion. Moving on to Wave 2, it's going to work basically the same way as Fighter Pass 1, except there's 6 characters this time. There'll be 4 original slots and 2 returning characters, and once again, I'm leaving the returning characters up to you guys to decide. The first Wave 2 character is Freddy Fazbear. No, I'm not joking, I am so dead serious. Now, once again, jokes aside, I do think FNAF deserves some representation in Smash, even if it's just one character. It's a massive franchise, it has changed people's lives, and there's literally evidence of that. I mean, just look at MatPat. Everyone knows FNAF, I see no reason why it shouldn't be represented. After FNAF, I'm choosing a character that doesn't even exist yet, the Persona 6 Pro Tag. I was going to add them into the base game roster, but I don't think Persona 6 will be out until well after the final roster has been decided, and I think they'd make a better Wave 2 choice than a Wave 1 choice. They'd essentially be the replacement for Joker. After all, this is why I removed him in the first place. For the penultimate pick, it's 100% time for Crash Bandicoot. He's a perfect pick for Smash with how cartoony he is, and in general, he's just really well known. I think everyone would be really happy if he was to get in. And finally, the final character in this hypothetical Smash game, my final pick, please welcome Banana God to the Super Smash Bros. Second Wind roster. This is a very inspired pick that I think everyone can agree with and appreciate. Nah, I'm just kidding. I set my actual final pick up earlier with Ratchet and Clank. My true final pick would be Kratos. Well, I don't think he's nearly as exciting as, for example, Sora. I think he definitely needs to be here. Kratos is the PlayStation rep, and if we're going to include Master Chief, we have to include Kratos. Plus, I think Sora in general is going to be such a hard level to top that there's almost no point in trying, so instead it's better to move on, and I tried to include as many exciting picks as I could to make up for it. With that said though, that is my official Smash Bros. Roster finish. Not gonna lie, this is really fun to do, mainly when it comes down to who I think should stay, go, who I should add, etc. I know not everyone is going to agree with what I've picked, but I do hope to start some discussion on a potential Smash Bros. Roster. I tried to pick characters that I think everyone agrees should be in, one way or another. Even if some picks are more memey than others, I still think everyone I've picked deserves a spot. That's pretty much it for me though. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.